there's over 100 million IRAs in the United States. And so
Wow.
if you think, and that's over $4.6 trillion. So if basically almost a third of everybody has a retirement account. That doesn't mean that everyone should self-direct, but my point is there's people all around you that could be your partner. But most likely you're one of those 100 million though. You've got this old IRA or old 401k. You've had it and you think there's no, like I can't do anything with it. It's only $20,000. Well, you can do something with that that's a little more proactive and engaging in what you like.
And welcome to the Infinite Financial Freedom Podcast, where we empower you with financial literacy and guide you on your journey to financial freedom. I'm Josh Metal, your host, and I'm here today with Greg Herlean and Claudia Guzman from Horizon Trust. I recently became a client of theirs. I learned about them from a group that I'm a part of with Brett Tanner called Be Wealthy, and recently moved all of my retirement accounts over to, which wasn't much because I'm a real estate guy, I'm not a stock guy. But I moved all of my stock over to Horizon Trust and really made the decision that I wanted to take back full control and agency of my retirement funds. I'm going to be, I've actually purchased my first home, which we're going to flip. I use those retirement funds to do that. So we're going to get into what is it like to take back control of your retirement funds, to do a self-directed IRAs, and really have agency of what you invest in, not just, companies that you may have no idea what's going to happen to them in the future. So I invited Greg and Claudia here today to really discuss the benefits of self-directed retirement accounts. Greg is also a very accomplished and experienced real estate investor. So we're going to get into some fun real estate investing questions, but without further ado, Greg and Claudia, thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Josh. Excited to be here and meet and talk to your community.
Thank you. And Greg is coming to us from Costa Rica, so he may need to go take a couple waves and head out if the internet crashes. He'll do a little surfing and come back. Claudia is coming to us from their offices in Las Vegas. Probably a little more consistent internet, but we're just going to roll with this and see how it goes. Tell me, Greg, how did you start First Horizon Trust? Like, what was the origin story, and how did that kind of fold into your journey in real estate, if you don't mind?
Yeah, well, there's two things that kind of got me on this journey. First, when I started in real estate at 22 years old, I didn't have any money. Different story than yours, Josh, but a similar kind of, story as far as no family with money, didn't have money, and didn't have banks that would lend me money. And I was at a conference learning about real estate, and someone brought up this self-directed subject. And so then I learned very quickly that someone could partner with me, AKA lend me or partner with me 100% of the proceeds from their IRA, and I could flip my first deal. So my first real estate deal 23 years ago was somebody's IRA lending to me. And so I learned it and I applied it right away. And then from there, I used other trust companies, right? I didn't own a trust company, right? So I was out there using other trust companies, talking to clients, networking, et cetera, building my real estate empire, if you want to call it that. And over several hundred transactions, I began to get fatigued and frustrated with trust companies. I thought the service in general was dismal and the speed was terrible. And speed kills in real estate.
Yep.
So I would, like, for example, I'd go to you, Josh, be like, hey, look, I got this deal. And Josh would be like, yeah, I'll partner with you or lend you in this real estate deal. I'll move my IRA over to XYZ trust company. Well, the process of you moving that over, these companies would take 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. And it was confusing and difficult. And so I started Horizon Trust Company 14 years ago, purely to solve, I felt like, a bad service experience, and really to take care of speed. And so now we're really fast. We are, I believe, the fastest in the industry. And that's our focus, is doing what the client says, but as quick as possible. Now, it still doesn't happen overnight. On a side note, we now shaved it down from 4 to 8 weeks to about 2 weeks. And the only reason why it takes 2 weeks is because, Josh, when you want to move your account over to us, as you probably just experienced, it's not really up for us to get the funds. When Fidelity's got them, we have to kind of stay on top of Fidelity, wherever those funds are coming from, calling until they send the monies over to us.
Yep.
So that's my long answer to your question, but that's how I got into the trust company business. Real estate investor first and foremost, but number two, felt and found the need to take care of something that was wrong in the market.
Well, to First Horizon's credit and to Claudia's credit, I liquidated from two different brokerages and had money at First Horizon and then funded my first deal inside of 3 weeks, the whole deal. Like the first phone call to wires at the title company were recorded. So exactly what you said, we just experienced. And I had no idea I was going to find a deal that quick either. It wasn't like, hey, 911, I got a deal to close. That was just normal course of business. Money showed up and I'm like, I got a deal. Cool. We closed 3 days later. So you guys are doing a fantastic job. Two things I took from what you just said, Greg, that I want to just underline. Number one, if you don't have money, that is not a reason for you not to get started in real estate. OPM, other people's money. There are people out there who have money, don't know how to make a return, don't have the time, energy, enthusiasm to go bird dog deals and figure out how you can change the economic value of a piece of real estate from low value to high value. And if you have that skill set, you just need to find somebody who has money and doesn't have that skill set. So OPM, exactly the same way I got started in real estate, didn't have a dime to my name. Who cares? Bought an eightplex. And 23 years later, it's gone up 600%, right? The rents have gone from $275 a month to $1,700 a month, zero money out of pocket to buy that eightplex 23 years ago. So I love that. And then the other thing that you said about just entrepreneurialism, look, entrepreneurs solve problems. So you don't have to think of like, well, what's the next, what's the next Tesla? What's the next SpaceX? It doesn't have to be something that's that crazy. It could be something simple like Greg's investing in real estate. He's using other people's money and he's going, it takes 8 weeks to get money from you guys. I should just start a business to solve this problem. So just a little entrepreneurial tip, be looking for things that are agitating you in your day-to-day work. And those are the business opportunities that can be, great, like what Greg's created here with First Horizon Trust, excuse me.
Horizon Trust. Yep.
Horizon Trust. Right on. Claudia.
Well, and what one thing I was going to say that real quick, sorry, Josh,
go ahead.
is when you said other people's money, the thing that I've learned that I think is super interesting is that there's over 100 million IRAs in the United States. And so
wow,
if you think, and that's over $4.6 trillion. So if basically almost a third of everybody has a retirement account. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone should self-direct, but my point is there's people all around you that could be your partner. But most likely you're one of those 100 million though. You've got this old IRA or old 401k, you've had it and you think there's no, like I can't do anything with it. It's only $20,000. Well, you can do something with that that's a little more proactive and engaging in what you like. But I just wanted to mention that as well when you talked about other people's money. But go ahead, Josh. I think you had a question for Claudia.
Man, that's a tremendous amount of wealth sitting in IRAs. I had no idea there was that much money sitting there. My guess is there's a lot of people who are a little disenfranchised or fearful of where the stock market is. And to be able to take some of that wealth off the table and invest in a real piece of real estate or a note, like there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Claudia. So I was going to, ask you, first of all, how did you start working with Horizon Trust? And then, you've had the benefit of overseeing hundreds, if not thousands of client accounts. So tell us what you've learned about what are the most successful clients doing? What insights can you give us there?
Yeah, so I have been with Horizon Trust for 3 years, and the way that I got connected to Greg is I was actually I was running a sales floor for an affiliate of his, and Greg was the one that would fulfill our Horizon Trust accounts, which is the self-directing part of what we were selling over there, and I just got I got a really good feeling with Greg. He was a great partner. He would come in and he would be really lively. So I said, one day I'm going to go work for that guy. And it didn't it didn't happen until COVID happened, and then I was like looking for something else, so I reached out to him, and then I came over here, and the rest is history. I've been here three years, and I love it. I oversee all of affiliate relationships and all of new clients. I've seen all sorts of investment opportunities that people can get really creative, which I mean, Josh, you had 2 or 3 ideas of what you wanted to invest in before you made that investment. So it was really cool. You got on the phone with Kelsey. You did. We have people that can go ahead and go over your ideas and make sure that we're protecting you. Make sure, yes, you can do this, or no, that's something that you can't do. Because there are a couple of things that are prohibited. And when we're dealing with entrepreneurs, especially people like Josh, they get really creative. So we want to make sure that you get on the phone with us and that you go over your plan, and then we can tell you, no, you can't do that, or yes. And Josh was able to go into an investment right away. I mean, his funds were on the way here, and we were able to take them out the next day so that he can start making money. So yeah, I love what I do. I love helping. I love helping people that want to make more money, that want to get out of the stock market, that want to make sure that they are taking control. So it's an awesome thing that we do here.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to a comment about Brett Tanner's group, Be Wealthy, which is how I got introduced to you, Claudia. But they talk a lot about increasing the velocity of money, and you can really do that with your IRA. And and the other thing that Brett teaches us is that you should have different assets for different time horizons. You should have short-term investments that are something that's generating cash flow and revenue and income. You should have medium-term investments, and then you should have long-term investments that, I say my preferred holding period for a piece of real estate is 100 years, because I think of it as, my kids are going to inherit this, and my job is just to maximize the economic well-being or potential of that property. But specifically using this IRA for short-term investments, short-term notes that are going to be out 3 to 6, 9 months, real estate flips that are going to be out short periods of time. Those shorter-term investments, the downside with them is that you have higher tax consequences than if I held that property for decades and multi-generations potentially. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's go there. Why is it more advantageous to hold your short-term, let's call it high return on investment, short duration investments? Why is it better to do that inside a self-directed IRA vehicle than doing it just with my home equity line of credit or cash that I have outside of the IRA?
Greg, do you want to answer that one?
Well, the first answer is, yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me
Gotcha.
okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
The first answer to that is, in year one, there's not really any tax benefits you get. So if you're flipping something like wholesaling, for example, and or flipping, buying and flipping a home, you don't get any tax benefit. You're going to pay the highest tax percentages on those kind of assets that you flip quickly. If you hold it, obviously there's better tax benefits. So the holding kind of assets longer term, like you said, most likely, not always, but most likely won't go in your self-directed IRA. Another example of that is if you bought something that, again, is an asset you're going to hold, but you're going to do a cost seg, you're going to get depreciation. Those kind of things, you don't get depreciation in IRA. So you want those assets outside of your IRA. All that being said, though, I just want to if you are Brett's like this, very technical and exactly what asset.
Surf break. Colin, yeah, let's mute him for just a sec until he comes back. And
I think what he was going to say is everything in the IRA is tax deferred. So anything that you put in there, if you're doing,
you don't necessarily. All right, sorry.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Still surf break.
No, you got it.
I think you're back. So let's go for
it.
Go ahead. Video off for a second, but I think Claudia, you were going to answer.
Yeah. So everything in the IRA is going to be tax deferred. So you can't take advantage of anything that you lose in there, but you're also not paying taxes as long as it's in the IRA because it's a qualified account. So if you have an IRA, if you have a Roth IRA, it's tax free. Anything that grows or you lose in there, you're not taking depreciation, but you're also not going to pay any taxes on it. For an IRA, you're tax deferring that. So when you go ahead and make the sale and you go ahead and invest it again, there's no tax taxes that are going to be made, that you're going to pay, you're paying taxes at the end when you take out as a distribution. So that's the beauty of an IRA. Do you want to have IRA income and then regular income? Of course you want regular income, because any profits that you make in the IRA has to stay in there until you take out distributions. So that's it's for retirement purposes. You want to make sure that you go into it with that mindset that if you make $100,000 on a flip, you're not going to keep that $100,000 personally. It's going to go in and grow your retirement account that way.
Yeah, great call. So let me just, for those of you who are watching the video version of this, I'm just going to share my screen real quick. And what Claudia is talking about is that if you buy a piece of real estate and turn around and resell it, or if you buy a note and then you sell it, you have what is likely going to be short-term capital gains tax, and those rates can be quite high depending on your income bracket. So great, you did a flip, and let's just say you made 20 grand, but if you had to pay $7,000 of that 20 grand in taxes, then your net was only 13 grand. And now you have 7,000 less dollars to deploy on your next investment. So you can kind of just see how the velocity of money would be a lot faster because you'd have more capital to deploy, more assets you can acquire. And if you can defer all those taxes until the end game, and then there's a lot of different games that can be played in the end game, right? I mean, at the point that you start taking money out of this IRA and there's taxes, like Greg referred to, you can buy another long-term real estate asset and do a cost segregation and depreciate to offset some of those income those years. You could potentially put some of those. Actually, let me ask you this question. I would assume that I could move that IRA into a trust, and there could be some generational tax deferment strategies that I could use if I'm passing it on to my heirs. Is that accurate? Can I move an IRA into a family trust?
No, but you can hear me now, right?
Perfectly.
Yes.
Okay. You can not convert, but it goes into a beneficiary IRA. So
Okay.
that's how you hand it down. So it can still say self-directed, but then there is some rules on when the beneficiary has to take funds out. But you can't just take the monies out of an IRA after you pass and put it into your trust. But it can transfer over, so there's not this big tax issue or event that comes up for your kids. One thing I don't know if Claudia said, sorry, I went out for a second, was what I wanted to say is some people be like, oh, I don't want to do this asset with my IRA because I can get depreciation. Well, if there's an opportunity for your IRA to buy something and get a better return than you would normally in the stock market, it doesn't really matter. And I know that because I still invest in things at times with my IRA that's long term, and I don't get the depreciation, but I'm still making 10, 12, 15% a year and deferring those taxes. And so
Right.
I understand the perfect scenario, which is what we're a little bit talking about. Like these assets go here and those go here. The thing that I want to make sure that is understood is if you have an IRA and you're unhappy with the returns you're getting, start investing that IRA self-directed in whatever asset class that works for you. Because now, even if it's a long-term asset, you're making double-digit returns, but you're not paying taxes on that. That's a big win. So I just want to say that too. It's not always so easy or so perfect because you might not have the cash outside of your IRA to buy a long-term asset. So that's okay too.
Great point. Great. Thank you for clarifying that. And one other thing I might just mention about that, because people might be thinking, well, geez, this is quite a leap to move all of my 401k that may be invested in index funds or whatever and move it into a self-directed IRA. One of the flaws that I've noticed in my own personal investing thinking is that I have to make binary decisions, meaning I have to sell all my index funds out of my 401k and move all my money into a self-directed IRA, or I shouldn't do either, right? That'd be binary, on, off. But what I've caught myself realizing is like, okay, well, why don't I just do half my funds? Or why don't I do a quarter of my funds? Let's leave 3/4 of my funds in index funds that I like that experience, but I'm really interested in this idea of investing in private money notes or investing in flips or wholesale deals. So why don't I just take 25% of my money? Let's move it over to a self-directed IRA. Let's see how that goes for a year or two. And then I can make the decision to move the rest. So if you're feeling like it's too big of a commitment to move everything, consider just moving a piece of it, enough to do a few deals and see if you like it.
And that's the
Yeah,
beauty of it. Like you have the chance to actually try it out. If you have somebody like Josh telling you, "Hey, this worked out for me," and you want to just see if it works for you, just take a section of it. Don't do the whole thing. It's not necessary. You can have that's what diversifying is for. So you can have money in the stock market, you can have money in Bitcoin, you can have money in real estate, you can have money everywhere and make money, make the returns in all of the different investments that you have. So you're completely right. You don't have to do the whole thing.
Greg, did you have something else you wanted to add there?
no, you get it. That's great.
Perfect. Right on. Thank you. Great answer, Claudia. Okay. So Greg, this one's for you, and I'm glad we've got the internet back. When I was researching you and going onto your website, you have a beautiful family, by the way. Congratulations. I learned about you that you have personally managed or run over $1.4 billion in real estate transactions in your life. You fixed and flipped over 450 homes and over 2,000 apartment units. So, dude, you're a very experienced investor. And my question to you is like, what are the primary or most important lessons that you would pull out of that history? Like, I could think of maybe 2 or 3 pillars that kind of define my investment focus or philosophy. What would a couple of those be for you?
Well, a couple, and I might have background noise now that I have good service, but
We
I'll
can't hear you,
hopefully be
so you're
okay.
okay.
Okay, good. A couple of things that come to mind and you ask that question is investing in what you know and understand. I think so many people, including myself even, when I first got going and having success, I was like, now that I'm crushing it on this in this part of the real estate market, I'm going to go buy hotels. And I thought this was, because I'm so good at what I do, right? But when you're off on a hotel, right? When you're off on a hotel by 3 to 6 months, that's a $50,000 to $60,000 a month nut. And when you're that's a big number.
Yep.
And when I 30 years old, 32 years old, that was tough. And so I would say if you're good in one area, focus on that. You don't have to jump into these other asset classes that you're not as familiar with, as well as demographically in whatever city you're in. I have some people are like, well, hey, where's the next hot spot? It's where you live and where you know. The only thing I'll add to that, it's where your team's at. So if you have a team, a trusted team, like in Josh is my guy in Utah, and I've done deals with Josh, that obviously works. But so many people, I think, get excited about real estate here in other markets, like, oh, I can't do real estate in California because the homes are too expensive. Not necessarily true. And so if you know your market, invest in your market and invest. I think the second or just as important is who you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that comes with typically, with experience, but getting a good team is so important. So I don't go after anymore. And again, probably the third lesson I learned is chasing the big returns, getting the consistent returns and not taking the losses. Has done me very well, but I had to experience those losses for myself for many years. I still made more than I lost, but still I had some pretty big losses because I was chasing these big returns. Consistent compounded returns, deferring your taxes, those are key tools, I think, for creating wealth.
So good. So good. Claudia, would you add anything to that?
No, I think he described it perfectly.
Yeah, I know from my own investing horizon, I very much felt early on that I was behind. You see as a young person all of this wealth around you, and you're like, man, I got to catch up. But what I didn't, and that led me to make the mistakes that you're talking about, Greg. Just like in hindsight, I'm like, dude, you knew nothing about that. You just thought, God was going to impart you with 100% returns on something you know nothing about. You had zero ability to create value. Like that was so stupid. But I felt like I was behind. And what I didn't have the perspective of is life is long. It's really long. Like I think it's Tony Robbins who says he consistently overestimates what he can do in a year and consistently underestimates what he's able to accomplish in a decade. And you don't have to hit home runs. You just have to get on base. Get on base and watch what happens. Get on first base with your investments and watch what happens over 10, 20, 30 years. You'll be a wealthy person. So you don't have to hit the home runs, invest in what you know in. I think that was absolutely fantastic advice. Thanks for that. Talk to me a little bit about Let's talk a little bit about flipping apartments for a minute, because I've always been a long-term holder of apartments, Greg. I've never thought about the flipping game of apartments. So I guess maybe just tell me a little bit about how did you get into that, and what's your strategy for creating value? I mean, I think a lot of people from the outside or maybe new into real estate, it's like, well, just buy real estate, wait for it to go up and sell it. But what I've found is most of the gains in real estate is over very long time horizons, like 20 plus years, or you figure out how to create value. In other words, I figure out how to buy a fourplex and add on an ADU. I figure out how to buy something that's got a lot of deferred maintenance and increase its economic value through improvement. So how do you create value in those units, and what lessons would you share with me?
Yeah, well, I think you a little bit answered the question with your question, because that's what I did. My model has always been to flip and sell. I'm not a buy and hold person. My son, on the other side, he's a buy and hold guy. He's young, but he's already. I mean, he's 21, and he's not with me, by the way. I think he owns like 12, little single family properties,
So
and
awesome.
his model is buy and hold, as many as my friends are. So I think it's just knowing, what you're most comfortable with. And so for me, I like the apartments, and like you said, multifamily, whatever that is, 4 or more is great. But even more, if you're getting to the 100 unit plus, you're buying dysfunctional, bad managed assets, and you're going in there, and the bigger successes I had were going in, and you fix the next 30 units and then increase the rents and then do the next 30 units. And once you stabilize it, then we sell. And that's what we would do. And so finding those kind of opportunities where you can fix and flip, but on a larger scale, and it's cookie cutter when it's apartment complexes. And so the art of the apartment complexes, and probably most of real estate, as you know, Josh, is relationships. Because everybody wants to be a multifamily. Everyone would love to fix and flip or hold an apartment complex.
Yeah.
But really, it comes down to grinding it in those relationships that you have to find them. And even if it's just one a year, that can be a big win, no matter how big. If it's 4 units, if someone only does a 4 unit that's doing nothing right now every single year for the next 10 years, you just created your retirement. And so you don't have to go after 100 units or 200 units. But that's my model is find the asset, get it fixed, rehabbed and sold. Or I also have done some storage units recently, and an industrial tilt up kind of, and we've built. But we've built it after we had a signed lease from a major company, a publicly traded company. And so though, for me, it's finding the value or finding the buyer and then developing, fixing for them, and then selling.
Cool. What was your average hold time on an apartment building? Because you talked about, you've got to create the value, increase the revenue, improve the units, and then you've got to stabilize the income. So what was that total cycle typically like?
18 to 24 months.
Okay. So they're usually an 18 to 24 month project. Got it. Very
And
interesting.
I mean, it depends on the size, right? The smaller one's definitely shorter. But also, like, right now is an interesting time. So I mean, with the rates the way they are, the assets like this industrial building that we bought, we already have the tenant in place for 75%, but we bought it based upon selling it with this tenant at a different cap rate. And so so today, what we're going to do, it's about to be done, like literally this month, is we're going to hold it. We're going to hold it for a year, maybe 2. And the payments that come in will cover the debt. And we're just going to kind of break even for rates to change. So then our cap, obviously, we can sell at a better cap rate. And it's a couple $1 million of difference in profit if we just wait. And so that's the market, indicates, tells you what to do.
I think we should dig into that just a little bit more. And then I want to come back to something that you said around building relationships. But we got started thinking that we were going to be flippers. My mom and I started investing together. I think I bought my home when I was 19, my first condo, and then we bought our first investment property. I think I was 20, and we thought we were going to be flippers. And if you wanted to know when real estate prices were about to go down by at least 10%, just figure out when mom and I would buy a property, and then you would know immediately thereafter real estate prices were about to go down. And what we realized was we are terrible at this. I mean, we are really, really uncanny bad. And so those flips that were now negative became rentals, just like Greg said. He's doing it with an industrial space. We did it with a little condo in Sugar House. We still own the condo today. We paid $85,000 for the condo. By the time we were done with our little renovation, which we did everything, right? Changed the wax underneath the toilet bowl, all the glamorous stuff that you get to do as a new real estate investor. And there were 3 or 4 short sales or foreclosures in that complex. When by time we put it back on the market, those short sales had sold in the high 60s. So we were upside down 25% on that building. And I thought, it's the end of the world. Well, we stuck a tenant in there. We were able to get a decent mortgage on it, and we made $50 a month in cash flow. Fast forward 23 years to today, that property is now free and clear. We've paid off the mortgage, and it rents for $1,700 a month. So, the cash flow in 1 year exceeds the profit we'd hoped to make in total on that investment. And someday my kids will own that property. So my point with this is time cures all in real estate, and you have optionality. If you have some liquidity on the sideline, if you have the ability to get financing and you think you're going to do a flip and then the market pivots on you, cool. I'll hold it for a couple of years. As long as I can, break even or close there to it, we'll wait for the market to pivot and then go back in and sell that property. Anything else you'd add to that, Greg, or anything else that you want to highlight?
No, I love it. I mean, I wish I could had, in 2008, stomach and been able to hold the assets, because, right, anyone that was able to keep their assets in 2008, even though it dropped 50%, at least, where I was at, maybe even 60%, by 2010 and 11, it had already come back at over 50%. So yeah, time does heal. But having assets also that you can rent or lease is important too. And I've not always had those assets. I remember in 2008, I had a lot of dirt.
Yep.
And those assets don't work.
Nope.
So
Scary times.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about inflation. And then I want to kind of pivot over to Claudia. How does somebody get their questions answered? How do they get a hold of you at Horizon Trust? So I'll come to you next. But, inflation is, it seems to be the most prevalent topic in finance right now. And, anybody who's following what's going on with Treasury bond prices, the price of Treasury bonds has been going down as the yield goes up, as interest rates go up, the price of those bonds go down. While we're seeing gold diverge and gold prices go up, we're seeing cryptocurrencies go up, we're seeing a lot of stock prices go up. And it really is starting to get into an environment where it feels like people are starting to lose faith on the future value of the US dollar. And so being a real estate investor, being a real tangible asset investor, what are your thoughts about inflation? How can it work against you? How can it work for you? Anything that you've been thinking about along those lines, Greg?
Besides that, when I go to In-N-Out now, like, it's the number one cost $12. I mean,
Serious.
So yeah, it's real. I mean, we live it every day. And so I used to actually not pay attention when I bought things, right? Because it's, because it didn't have to.
Yeah.
I don't know that I still have to, but now I pay attention. It's like, what? Wait, that cost $12 or whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
And so, look, it's real. And so we all know it, we see it, we feel it. And I think what's interesting too is even, some of these stores and companies are increasing prices, not necessarily because of just inflation. Like the inflation maybe brings it up 20%, but then they'll just, and today, I don't know, hotels for some reason, right? You can't, like, hotels are hundreds of dollars more a night. That's more than inflation. And
Yeah.
so it's, I feel it, I see it. And I think you nailed it with bonds and rates and what's happening. And I think that's a true testament of why it's so much more important now to really know where you're investing and how you're investing and being more technical about it. I think the old ways of doing things just don't work anymore. So because the US dollar, the value is going down, inflation's going up, it's all the more reason you've got to do something different. For example, when I first started, and probably you, Josh, as well, and Claudia, when we all started, the message was just put away X amount of dollars, and hypothetically in the stock market, you'll make 8 to 10%. In that 30 years, you're going to have $1 million. Well, we all know $1 million is not $1 million anymore. So even if they were to say you're going to have $2 or $3 million, it's not necessarily enough. And so my point is if all you need to be doing, in my opinion, based upon what I'm seeing in the market, is if you're currently making 5, 6, 7, 8% in general in your investments in the stock market, all you got to be getting is 3 or 4% more. Mm-hmm. And even though I say all, it's not that easy. But the first step is just not stop doing what you've been doing. Change what you're doing, because otherwise you're not going to keep up with inflation. Otherwise, you're not going to be prepared for retirement. So first, you got to change. But number two, once you change the way you're investing and what you're looking at, you just need to make a little bit more. And again, a few percentage points a year compounded and not paying taxes on it or deferring taxes is huge. You can play with those compounded calculators all day long, and you can tell, like, all you got to do is if you go from making 8 to 11%, investing in real estate or something a little bit better, and not paying the same fees that you're paying your advisor wherever you're at. Those couple percentage points is all the difference. You having literally millions of dollars more, millions. You'll go from like $2 million to $5 million just by a few percentage points more. And so I just say, be aware. That's why Brett talks about this, and you're talking about it, is you need to take action. And look, end of the day, only 10 or 15% of the people probably will take action in the US, not necessarily your listeners, right? Your listeners are the ones that are taking action, but you got to take action. And if you wait 5 years, it's fine, but that's potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars that you're missing out on because you're waiting to take that action.
Super well said. And my kind of, message in 2024 is that people need to be more aware and more involved in this stuff than they have been in the past. And I'll close on this chart, and then we'll send it over to you, Claudia, because I want you to tell us a little bit more about how to get started and how to find you at Horizon Trust. But for those of you that are watching, I'll try to, or those of you that are listening, I'll try to narrate this well for you. But I want everybody to be paying attention to inflation. I want you to be reading the articles about inflation. I want you to be thinking about what inflation is. Inflation is the devaluation of the dollar. And so this is a chart for those of you that are watching that goes back to about I think it goes back to about 1912, and it shows cumulative inflation over the last, let's just call it 110 years. And essentially, you can see that inflation was kind of moving along from 1912 to 1971, I guess is 1969. And so we went on here a period of roughly 60 years, and inflation went up about 284%. Now that seems like a lot, but if you amortize it, or if you divide it over that 60-year time horizon, it's not really that much. It's not like crushing you. But something happened right around 1969. It was actually right in 1971 when we no longer were able to convert dollars into gold pieces anymore, and the US dollar became a fiat currency. But those of you that are looking at this graph, you see this incredible, kind of like hockey stick change in direction and inflation. And from 1969 to 2022, so what do we have there? 53 years. So in 53 years, is that right? Yeah, 53 years, we now see 284% cumulative inflation to 2,923%. If I do the math, that means over that 50-year period of time, you had 2,639% of inflation. Okay, what the hell does that mean? That means that a $10 meal in 1969 now costs a family $264 for the same meal out. And, talking about what Greg was, hotels are crazy, restaurants are crazy. My family and I were in Grand Cayman this winter, Greg, and I swear to you, we went to a restaurant. It was like a barista, like coffee place. We had yogurt, a breakfast sandwich, coffees, and the kids had smoothies. It was $210. And I'm like, what is happening? I didn't get any champagne with this. So inflation, my point with sharing this with you all is this. whatever dollar amount you think you need in retirement, it's not enough. Not at the rate of inflation that we're going at, because those dollars have been eroded by approximately 85% since 1971. And the erosion of those dollars consistently happening means you need a lot more dollars at retirement age than you think you need, because you're thinking about, well, what is, if I have $5 million in retirement, that seems like a lot of money. Well, that's today's purchasing power. But in 2050's purchasing power, $5 million might only be $2 million in purchasing power. So the number one theme of that I want people to pay attention to, and the message is, you've got to invest in asset classes that are growing faster than the rate of inflation, and you need a lot more downstream revenue than you probably think that you do.
Yeah, I wish you could bet on inflation. Well, I guess we can bet on inflation, but that's the stock I want to buy.
Totally, right, exactly. Well, it's interesting. I'm actually doing a presentation for the Be Wealthy group in May, and it's the title of the presentation is How Inflation Destroys Debt and Makes Intelligent Investors Rich. And this was taught to me by a gentleman by the name of Jason Hartman that I did a podcast with a few years ago. And he says, you know, if you want to win with inflation, then you borrow in US dollars and you buy investments that can debt service that. And then what happens is inflation essentially devalues the dollar, then your debt has essentially been devalued. So that's the only way I really know to win with inflation. But that's gonna be a central theme on this podcast for the rest of the year. So
well, and I'll see you in May, so I'm going to be out there. So I'll look
you are
forward to
cool.
listening to you.
You're going to be at the Be Wealthy or the KW Wealth event?
Both.
Kick butt. Right on, man. I look forward to
Yeah.
seeing you in person. Right on.
Perfect.
Claudia, tell us, how do they find you? If people have questions, where do they go to learn more about Horizon Trust?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways to get in contact with us. Obviously, you can go to horizontrust.com. That's our website. I have a link to go ahead and share, but I don't know if I can share it because we are kind of live, but not. Yeah.
Share it,
okay.
and
So
we'll
I'll
get
put
it
it in
into
the
the other
chat.
link.
I'll put it in the chat. And the way that it works is you can go ahead and book an appointment with somebody on our team. We will get on the phone with you, go over any specifics of what accounts you have, what your goals are, what you're looking to do. Then we'll set up your account with Horizon Trust. Then you're going to have a call with our liquidations department. What that call is as Josh knows, you call, you get the client on the phone and then the resigning custodian, and then we're going to go over how to go ahead and transfer the funds actually over to Horizon Trust. We'll have a follow-up system every 2 days to make sure that the funds are moving and that the resigning custodian is letting go of those funds and transferring them over. Then you're going to, once the funds arrive here, you're going to have a call with one of our investment specialists. They'll go over what your investment opportunity is. If you already have one, if you don't have one, we have some options that are on our website that other clients have used in the past that they've seen returns on. We are a passive custodian, so we're not allowed to tell you what to invest in. But we are allowed to give you guidance. So we're here to guide you. We're here to transfer the funds, make it as seamless as possible. That investment specialist is also going to go over any paperwork because it is an investment. You do need paperwork associated, especially if it's a real estate investment. So she'll go over what the paperwork is. She'll go over what our paperwork is. There's an internal form that needs to get signed. And then within 24 to 48 hours, your investment will be made.
And I'll just say on your behalf, Claudia, that I had been thinking about this for 3 years, and I kind of just like lost my faith in the stock market, and so I'd moved into like treasury bills, and I was making ridiculously low returns, and I was thinking to myself, this is going to be such a pain in the ass. I don't want to do it, and I put it off for like 2 years. It was so ridiculously easy. And I had like 5 different accounts we transferred. They walked you through it. Here's the forms, e-sign them, fill them out. Took me a few minutes, money transfer. They're so incredibly great to make what feels like a huge task to me. And total outlay in time was probably 30 minutes. And I really wish I would have done it sooner. I just didn't realize you guys were going to make it so easy. So thank you and kudos to you and your team.
Yeah, we've really worked in the last 3 years to perfect the process, working with Greg, letting him know what we need, making sure that we put the right people in place. So, and I'm always available. You can go ahead and email me at any time. I'll put my email on there as well if you guys want to share it. So if at any point in the process, Josh actually was in direct contact with me. So if at any point in the process you need help, email me directly and I will make sure that help happens within 5 to 10 minutes.
Appreciate you. Greg, any closing thoughts you want to close us out with, my friend?
Well, this is why Claudia works with us, because she makes sure it's very seamless. She's got a great team. So
Does.
we're blessed to have that. And so I would just say, I think in summary, wherever you are right now in this in your financial kind of storyline or lifeline here, you can start self-directing. So if you have no money, this message applies to you, because there's 100 million other people around you that have money that can be your partner. So there's no reason why you can't find funding. So you should be, like I was 23 years ago, the biggest self-directed referral partner. Why? Because you want them to partner with you. And so you should be sending us clients. And this is not self-serving. I'm just trying to help you if you're trying to build your business looking for money. So that's the first step. If you're listening to this. Number two, if you have money, you can absolutely, and you don't have a retirement account, that's okay. We can help you establish your first retirement account. So you can start investing using a self-directed IRA. And then lastly, for those of you that are listening that have an old IRA, old 401k, and are sick of the returns, or just want to test out what we're talking about, I encourage it. It's kind of fun actually to leave someone with your advisor and be like, hey, look, I'm going to see what I can do. Let's see what we both do over the next 12 months. And then I'll decide if I'm going to take more money away from you or not. So take action, make a little bit better than what you are right now. What's I love about what we do is we teach people how to unlock this money and invest it in things that you know, like, and trust. And by the way, that can be almost anything. I'm not going to, these are my parting words, but people have invested in horses that they rent out to the rodeo. I mean, as crazy as that is, or ice rinks or businesses. And so the sky's almost the limit. I mean, obviously there's a few things you can't do, and we'll help you with those things. So we look forward to working with you and answering all the questions you've got. So thanks for having us, Josh.
Yeah, killer close. Thanks, Greg. And just lastly, I know you've got a great website. You also, I believe, have a podcast. If people want to learn more from you and follow you, where can they find you?
Just follow on Instagram. Just that I'm new. I feel like I'm still new to that. I shouldn't say that, but I feel like I am. So you can follow me at Greg Herlean. We post, and I'm also I do a podcast every other week with my son called Generational Gains. It's fun to hear his journey as he's going through what I did, 23 years ago, but I think probably in a much better way than I did. And so we do a podcast as well. So yeah, just follow me on social media, Instagram would be great. And then we can learn more.
Can't wait to listen to your podcast. I didn't know that it was called Generational Gains. I didn't know you did it with your son. That is really cool. Yeah. Right on. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. We'll make sure we put all the notes in the show notes. This has been tremendously valuable. Hope everybody has a great day. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Infinite Financial Freedom Podcast.